what is the situation in Cuba now in terms of the freedoms or lack thereof that people enjoy in some instances? There's a lot that we're skipping over in terms of like a lot of the gains in terms of literacy and medicine, and the ability of people to live in housing. There's also been a lot of political repression over these years as well. Where are we now, and where do you anticipate things going?
I'm a historian, so I'm always going to take you back. There's no way to understand where we are now unless you understand the effects of the fall of the Soviet Union and Cuba. So basically, from the early 90s, you had this horrible economic crisis that just changed daily life in Cuba. And in some ways, the government dealt with that by increasing tourism and allowing foreign direct investment, things like that. But really, the country never recovered. And so we're 30 years into that. So the economic situation never recovered. It's worse now with the pandemic, which had a horrible effect in Cuba of late. And you have growing repression. The repression's been there almost from the start. And the new president, Díaz-Canel, has given no indication that he's going to let up. In fact, it's been the opposite. So he's put in new laws, really limiting artistic expression. Artists can't exhibit or perform unless they have express approval from the government. Some young artists have called for negotiation. Some cultural figures wanted to do that. The president said, nope, no negotiation. They're all terrorists. And then we saw it after the protests, which were unprecedented. They occurred all over the island, more than 50 locations, many young people, many Black Cubans, many artists, and so on. And the president went on TV and basically said, they're all terrorists, they're paid for by the US. And he sent people out to crush them and beat them and arrest them. So the political situation is terrible. And I really think that a majority, Cubans are 30 years more tired of economic crisis. They're 30 years more tired of being told to wait and of having to sacrifice. And I think the new president does not have the historic relationship to the country or the people that the Castros did. And the majority of people don't trust him to know how to overcome the deep crisis of the present.
It's fascinating stuff. I wish we had even more time, and perhaps we'll have you back for to cover those years and to get a sense of where we're going, the special period, as they call it, after the fall of the Soviet Union, and the military, the economic deprivation, and of course it's enhanced by the embargo from the United States.
Right, absolutely.
Significantly. But the book is Cuba, An American History. Ada Ferrer, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
I mean, it is really amazing. Just sort of like we could probably have a variation of that interview about Haiti. In many ways, it would be
a lot of the patterns reproduce themselves.
Yeah.
It's not one where
Guatemala, alone, Nicaragua. I mean, there's, some places it becomes more murderous, our involvement. But you talk about like the legacy of decisions that we made in this country and of our imperialism from 200 years ago. It's not a lot you have to do 200 years later if you do it right the first time, in terms of like making countries really inhibiting the development of self-governance.
It's the good neighbor policy.
Yeah, I mean, if you really, you only have to intervene a couple of times before you ensure that these countries, back in the day, if you do it enough, or whenever there's a inkling of some type of democratic control or impulse, if you do it enough, you can really screw up a country for decades to come.
Right.
So, congratulations to us. Congratulations to us. I would also argue probably that there's that to the extent that you can do that with like sort of the culture of democracy, you probably also can do that with like, sort of cohorts of people. Like the, implications of slavery in the context of where you then also have like a series of rolling initiatives to continue to keep a lot of people as second-class citizens.
Yeah, and then you can just change the justification every time, right? It's communism. It's trying to stop a tyrant. It doesn't matter. You can You can just interchange them. Pick one of them out of a hat. Although they're not too creative with the imaginary boogeyman.
Well, you don't need.
I guess you can just
Well, I
play
think
the
the
hits.
best the hit was this guy is a threat to democracy, and by democracy there's a little asterisk that it says the interests of global capitalists.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
I've told this story before, but I worked on my then wife's. Well, I guess she wasn't my wife at that time. Documentary that we shot in Cuba in 2002. And one of the subjects was one of Castro's photographers, who Castro understood that he was dealing with a country that was had a high illiteracy rate at that time before Castro came in. They have a very high literacy rate now. And so he wanted to tell the story of the revolution in pictures. And this one guy, Raul Corrales, who I believe has since passed, I would imagine he must have, traveled with Castro in his first trip to the United States to speak at the UN. And apparently Castro's CIA nickname or security nickname, Sugar One, gives you a sense of what the who he was to the United States.